I, Ashley, grew up in a family that valued academic achievement above all else. My father held a high-ranking position as an elite employee at a major corporation, while my mother supported his social standing as a full-time homemaker. In such a household, I was constantly compared to my older sister, Vanessa. Vanessa is 2 years older than me and blessed with literary talent, becoming the embodiment of our parents' hopes and expectations. As for me, I wasn't exactly unintelligent, but I wasn't outstanding either. In other words, I was what you'd call average. My test scores were mostly B's, placing me somewhere in the upper middle of my class. Compared to Vanessa's spectacular academic record, I couldn't help but seem lackluster. Even when I worked hard in biology and managed to get a B+, it was overshadowed by Vanessa winning a literary award. At family dinners, the conversation always revolved around Vanessa. Vanessa, your presentation at the literature showcase today was wonderful. My mother would say that excitedly. You really have such a promising future. I'm sure you'll be a fantastic writer someday. Meanwhile, I stood in the corner of the living room, holding a certificate for making it to the state finals in a biology contest. No one even noticed my achievement. That was normal in our house. The difference in how we were treated was obvious, even materially. Vanessa was given the latest Chanel bags, while I had to make do with her hand-me-downs, usually some unbranded items. Even for birthdays, Vanessa received expensive jewelry, while I got practical stationery. Ever since I was a child, I had dreamed of becoming a doctor. But my parents decided early on that I simply wasn't cut out for it. They endlessly praised Vanessa's literary gifts, but never acknowledged my passion for science. Ashley, my mother said coldly as she folded laundry, you should think about a practical career like becoming a nurse or a pharmacy technician. To become a doctor, you need a special background. Those words pierced my heart. It was the same at family gatherings. Vanessa became the president of the literature club. My father would announce proudly while I sat quietly in a corner. No one ever mentioned my steady improvement or my dedication to studying after school. And what about Ashley? A relative might ask, to which my father would respond with an awkward smile. Well, she's just average. She tries, but she's not like Vanessa. She's just ordinary. That word, ordinary, left a deep scar on my heart, but at the same time, it planted a powerful resolve. If I didn't have talent, I would just work 10 times harder than anyone else. Someday, I would prove to my parents how wrong they were about me. That determination became the driving force that shaped my life. As high school graduation approached, my desire to go to medical school only grew stronger. But when I finally told my parents about my dream, their reaction was even colder than I'd expected. Medical school? Are you still talking about that? My mother's laugh was sharp, full of scorn. Ashley, get real. You don't have what it takes to be a doctor. Besides, we can't afford med school tuition. But you paid for Vanessa's college in full. I protested, my voice shaking. My father cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. That was different. Vanessa had real potential. She excelled in literature. Honestly, you're just not cut out for university. I pleaded desperately. I'll work while I study. I'll take out student loans. I'll sign a legal contract and pay back every cent with interest. We don't believe in debt in this family, my mother said coldly. We're not going to change that principle for you. You need to accept your limits and find an appropriate job. That night, I cried for hours in my room. But by morning, my tears had turned to resignation. I went to visit my grandparents' house, simply needing someone to listen. At the kitchen table, with tears streaming down my face, I explained everything. Grandpa, Grandma, it looks like I have to give up on medical school. My parents just won't help me. My grandfather's face turned red with anger. What? Those fools. He slammed his fist on the table. They'll spend money on Vanessa without a second thought, but trample on your dream? I won't allow it. My grandmother, with tears in her eyes, said softly. Ashley, you've always worked so hard since you were little. You're meant to be a doctor. But without money, I began to give up. But then my grandfather stood up. Wait. There was a determined light in his eyes. We have the house and land that have been passed down for generations. We'll sell them. But that land is precious. I protested in a panic. You're more precious to me, he said firmly. I won't let anyone crush my granddaughter's dream. Several weeks later, my grandfather really did sell the land. With the money from the sale and a scholarship, I was able to pay for my entire medical school tuition. Once I entered medical school, I threw myself into my studies with everything I had. Fueled by my parents' constant criticism, I consistently ranked at the top of my class. Anatomy, physiology, pathology, I excelled in every subject. Eventually, I cut off all ties with my parents and sister. Even when I returned to my hometown for holidays, I stayed only at my grandparents' house and never went near my childhood home. Even after becoming a doctor, I never stopped pushing myself. I trained as a cardiologist, and with every successful complex heart surgery, I proved my ability again and again. Thank you letters from patients piled up, and my work was often featured in medical journals. Financial success followed as well. On top of earning $400,000 a year, I received special bonuses for difficult surgeries and participated in investment projects for medical device development. My income just kept rising. I bought a luxury BMW outright and purchased a penthouse in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of the city below. But most importantly, I was able to cover all of my grandparents' medical expenses and provide them with a truly comfortable retirement. The daughter my parents once declared not suited to be a doctor has become one of the most respected physicians in the community. One Tuesday afternoon, I had just finished a difficult surgery at the hospital. Exhausted, I returned to my office only to find a missed call from an unfamiliar number on my phone. Hello, is this Dr. Ashley? This is George Willems from the loan department at First National Bank. I frowned. Yes, this is Ashley. What is this about? I'm calling to confirm the $200,000 loan application submitted under your name. If you provide the necessary documents by tomorrow, we can process the loan immediately. My blood ran cold. Wait a minute. I never applied for any loan. I could hear the loan officer flipping through papers on the other end. But we do have an application here with your name and signature. We've also received proof of employment and income listing you as a physician making $400,000 a year. You passed the credit screening without any issues. My heart began pounding in my chest. This is definitely a mistake. I didn't apply for any loan. This could be a case of fraud. I see. That's a serious concern. We'll begin an investigation right away. I'll send you the application documents for review. After I hung up, I collapsed into my chair. Who would use my name to apply for a $400,000 loan? The next day, when the documents arrived from the bank, I was even more shocked. The application was indeed in my name, but the signature was clearly forged. The address was correct, but the emergency contact listed was a number I didn't recognize. I immediately contacted a private investigator, Howard Baker, who had previously helped me with a hospital incident. Mr. Baker, I need you to investigate something for me as soon as possible. A few days later, Howard came back with a shocking report. Doctor, the people behind this are your own parents. I was speechless. After more than 10 years of zero contact, why would my parents do this now? I looked into it further. Howard said, opening a thick file. Your father lost his job at a major company during the 2008 financial crisis and hasn't been able to find steady work since. Your mother's been working part-time, but they're in a pretty desperate situation. What does that have to do with my loan? It turns out your sister Vanessa is marrying Steve Anderson, an investment banker from a prominent family. The wedding budget is $400,000, and your parents promised to cover half of it. I began to understand. So they used my name to try and get the money for the wedding? Exactly. They tried to take out a loan using your strong credit as a physician. I also checked the emergency contact number. It's your mother's cell phone. And it seems they hired a PI themselves to find your current address. Anger rose within me. When I wanted to go to medical school, my parents insisted they didn't believe in debt and shut me out. Now, they were trying to borrow money in my name without permission, for their own pride and for Vanessa's lavish wedding. Mr. Baker, please give me my parents' current address. I need to speak with them directly. That night, for the first time in 10 years, I stood in front of my childhood home. The once impressive two-story house was cracked and neglected, the yard overgrown with weeds. It was clear they were struggling financially. When I rang the doorbell, my mother answered. Her face went pale the moment she saw me. Ashley, what are you? I need to talk, I said, keeping my voice steady. May I come in? She led me into the living room where my father appeared. He looked worn out, nothing like the elite businessman I once knew. I want to ask you about the $200,000 loan. I got straight to the point. My parents exchanged glances. My mother answered in a trembling voice. That was. Why did you use my name without permission to apply for a loan? My father finally spoke, his voice heavy. Ashley, the truth is, we desperately needed money for Vanessa's wedding. Without even consulting me? My mother jumped in, flustered. Well, you cut off all contact with the family. But we knew you were successful as a doctor. With an income of $400,000 a year, we thought you could. You thought I could? There was anger in my voice. What did you say when I wanted to go to medical school? My father lowered his head. That was different. How was it different? When I asked you to lend me money, to take out a loan, to sign a legal agreement, you told me we don't do debt and that I wasn't cut out to be a doctor, but now you tried to take out a loan in my name without my consent. My mother's eyes were filled with tears. But we're family. Family? I gave a cold laugh. So, when I was struggling, I wasn't family, but now that you're desperate, suddenly I'm family again? My father stood up. You're successful now, aren't you? Back then, there was no guarantee you'd make it. So you abandoned me when there was no guarantee, and now that I'm successful, you want to use me? Is that what family means to you? I stood up and looked down at them. My answer is no, using my name without my permission is a crime. It's forgery and identity theft. Withdraw the loan application immediately. My mother broke down, clinging to me in tears. Please, Ashley. Vanessa's wedding will be ruined. We can't embarrass ourselves in front of Steve's family like this. That's not my problem. My tone was icy. If you want to stick to your no debt principle, go ahead. I walked toward the door. If you don't withdraw the loan application within 48 hours, I'll file formal charges through my attorney. My father shouted after me, You heartless child. Are you really going to abandon your own parents? Without looking back, I replied, You're the ones who abandoned me. The next day, my parents reluctantly withdrew the loan application. But my anger didn't subside. They only gave up because they didn't want to get caught. They never once admitted they'd done anything wrong. That incident made my decision final. I would never again fall prey to their toxicity. I was ready to take legal action if necessary. If anything happened again, I wouldn't hesitate. I had built my life with my own hands, and anyone who tried to take advantage of that would face the full weight of my social standing as a physician and my legal knowledge. A week after I discovered the loan fraud, on Saturday morning, my penthouse intercom buzzed. When I looked at the monitor, I saw two familiar faces. But their expressions were nothing like I remembered. My mother's hair was disheveled and her eyes were bloodshot. My father's face was flushed with anger as he shouted something, though I couldn't hear it. Standing behind them was a small, thin man in a cheap suit I didn't recognize. Come on up, I said calmly over the intercom. When the elevator doors opened, my parents rushed out in a frenzy. Their agitation was off the charts. Ashley, My mother screeched. This is all your fault. Steve's parents said we have to pay $200,000 by Monday, or they might call off the wedding. There's no time left. My father yelled just as loudly. Are you trying to disgrace us in front of Steve's family? You're destroying our family's honor. Vanessa cries every day. This is all your fault. I stared at them, perfectly calm. Please, settle down. And who is this gentleman? A short, scrawny man stepped out from behind my father. My name is Tom Norman. I'm here as your parents' attorney. He was obviously third-rate. His suit was wrinkled, his bag old and worn. He was nothing like the lawyers from any top law firm. An attorney? For what, exactly? I asked. My mother burst out, almost hysterical. We're going to court. We're suing you for failing your duties as family. We'll drag you to court for abandoning your parents. My father added. Norman cleared his throat and began. Miss, taking family disputes to court benefits no one. Might I suggest a peaceful settlement? Internally, I almost laughed. They really intended to take me to court. How interesting, I replied calmly. On what charges, exactly, do you plan to sue me? My mother answered with gusto. For being an ungrateful child. For abandoning your family. For forgetting everything we did to raise you and leaving your parents behind. And, my father added, you have a legal obligation to support us. You make $400,000 a year as a doctor. Refusing to help your family is illegal. Their lawyer, Tom Norman, looked awkward and uncomfortable. There isn't actually a law against being an ungrateful child these days. What are you talking about? My mother snapped at the lawyer. You're supposed to be on our side. You need to teach her a lesson. By now, I was almost enjoying how ridiculous the situation had become. So, what exactly are you hoping to get out of this? My father replied triumphantly. A court order for you to pay $400,000 plus regular support payments from now on. And, my mother chimed in, even more worked up, a public apology. I want a headline in the paper saying, ungrateful daughter apologizes to family. Norman was now sweating profusely. Legally, these demands are a bit. Legally what? My mother glared at him. We're just asking for our rightful due. I stood up. Fine. Let's go to court. But I have some preparations to make as well. I made a phone call. Half an hour later, my intercom rang. Come on up. My parents looked confused. Who did you call? A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened and 3 men stepped out. One was my attorney, David Miller, one of the best criminal lawyers in the city. The other 2 were police detectives. My parents and their lawyer went pale instantly. We're ready to proceed, I said, smiling slightly. This is my attorney, Mr. Miller. I introduced him calmly. And these are Detectives Morris and Irving. They're here about the charges of forgery and identity theft. My parent and their lawyers' faces were completely drained of color. Miller spoke in a deep, authoritative voice. As Dr. Ashley's legal representative, I am formally filing criminal charges regarding this forgery. The evidence provided by the bank clearly shows forged signatures and false employment records. Wait a moment. My father's lawyer interrupted, flustered. This is just a family matter. A family matter? Detective Morris fixed him with a sharp stare. You call a $200,000 loan scam a family matter? This is a serious crime. My mother's voice trembled as she said, but we're family. In the eyes of the law, family or not, everyone is equal. Detective Irving replied coldly. In fact, abusing a relationship of trust actually makes this even more serious. Miller then opened a file. According to the bank's evidence, Dr. Ashley's signature was clearly forged. Handwriting analysis confirms it. Also, the employment documents were illegally obtained without Dr. Ashley's knowledge. And, I quietly added, I have already formally reported this unauthorized transaction to the bank. This is about my credit history and my reputation as a physician. My father's lawyer looked completely defeated. But surely they didn't mean any harm. No harm? My voice was icy. You used my name without my permission, forged my signature, and tried to saddle me with $200,000 in debt without even telling me. How is that not harmful? My father scrambled to his feet. Wait, I just thought it was natural, because we're family. And you think being family means you get away with a crime? Detective Irving demanded, his tone unforgiving. My mother broke down in tears. Ashley, please, drop the charges. We can't go to prison. I answered coolly. What did you say to me when I wanted to go to medical school? Be realistic? We don't do debt? Well, now it's your turn to face reality. Attorney Miller delivered the final warning. My client will be proceeding with formal criminal charges. Forgery, identity theft, attempted loan fraud, these are serious felonies. Prison time is a very real possibility. At last, my father's lawyer threw in the towel. I'm withdrawing from this case. Now that it's a criminal matter, you'll need to hire a specialist. With that, he hurried out of the room, leaving only my parents behind, completely crushed. Everything I'd built over the years, my legal knowledge, my financial independence, my sense of justice, had finally defeated them once and for all. One last thing, I said, rising and walking over to the window. You told me I wasn't cut out to be a doctor. And yet here I am, a board-certified cardiologist making $400,000 a year, saving lives every day. Meanwhile, you're being questioned by the police as criminals. I think it's pretty clear now who was right. At that moment, my father suddenly jumped up, shouting, "Don't be ridiculous. You're not my daughter. Not anymore." My mother, worked up and trembling, spat out, "Ungrateful monster. Do you have any idea what we sacrificed to raise you?" "Calm down," Detective Morris tried to interject, but my father had already lost all control. "How can I calm down?" He slammed his fist on my glass table with a loud crack. "This ungrateful monster ruined us. What's going to happen to Vanessa's wedding?" My mother had completely lost it, too. "You're a disgrace to medicine. I'll never forgive you." "Enough," Detective Irving warned them, but my mother just pointed at me, venom in her voice. "I'll tell all your patients what kind of cold-hearted person you really are. No one should trust their life to you." My father grew even more hysterical. "After all we did for you, now you treat us like criminals? We must have been fools to ever have a child like you." He lunged for my bookshelf, reaching for the shelf that held my medical books and thank you letters from patients, clearly intending to knock it over. "Stop." Detective Morris grabbed my father's arm. "Let go of me. I'll destroy everything in this hypocrite's house." He struggled against the detective, while my mother, now totally unhinged, screamed, "Everything in this place was bought with our money. You have no right to any of it." She hurled a cushion from the sofa at me. "If you continue, I'll have to arrest you for interfering with a police investigation." Detective Irving's warning was sharp, but my parents didn't care. My father began throwing my medical journals across the floor. My mother picked up a framed photo and smashed it to the ground, glass shattering everywhere. "Stop it," I yelled, but my mother just laughed maniacally. "Stop? You ruined our lives, now I'll ruin yours." My father grabbed documents from my desk and started ripping them to shreds. "A doctor? What a joke. You're not qualified for anything." Attorney Miller leaned in and said quietly, "Doctor, for your safety, you should go to another room." As I started to leave the living room, my mother hurled one last curse. "Ashley, you're cursed. You'll never know happiness. You'll die alone, with nobody by your side." "That's enough," Detective Morris said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. "You're both under arrest for property damage and making criminal threats." "Arrest?" My father swung his fist at the detective, but Detective Irving quickly subdued him. "So you're resisting arrest?" Detective Irving said coolly. "That's another charge. Interfering with an officer." Even as they were being cuffed, my mother kept fighting. "Let go of me. We didn't do anything wrong. She's the real monster." She glared at me and shrieked, "I'll tell all your patients the truth. I'll make sure you can never work as a doctor again." Detective Morris turned to me. "Doctor, I'll need to document the damage for the property destruction charge. Do you wish to press charges for this as well?" I looked around my devastated apartment, ripped documents, smashed photo frames, books scattered everywhere. And strangely, instead of anger, I felt a profound sense of relief. "Thank you, detective," I said calmly. "I'd like to press charges, including property damage." Even as my parents were being led away, my mother kept turning back, screaming, "Remember this, Ashley. What goes around comes around. You'll pay for this Sunday." My father shouted just as loudly, "You're not our daughter. From today, you're nothing to us. Never call us your parents again." The elevator doors closed, and finally, the apartment was silent. Standing in the middle of my wrecked apartment, I took a deep breath. Attorney Miller placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Doctor, that was quite an ordeal. But after this, their true colors are completely exposed. This will be a huge advantage in court." I walked to the window and looked out over the city. Then, I called my grandparents. "Grandpa, it's over. I didn't waste the chance you gave me." A few days after my parents' arrest, the story made not just the local papers, but was also covered by regional TV news. The headlines read, "Former corporate executive couple arrested for loan fraud using daughter's name," followed by details. "Resisted arrest with property damage and assault, scene turns chaotic." Especially shocking to the public was that they had caused a disturbance in their daughter's home and threatened a medical professional. In a small community like ours, news like this spreads instantly. Criticism of my parents was overwhelming. How could they use the name of their daughter, who's contributed so much as a doctor? Damaging her property in her own home, how could they stoop so low? My phone blew up with messages. Almost all were supportive and sympathetic. My hospital colleagues stood by me as well. Then, 1 week after my parents' arrest, Vanessa's wedding was called off. Once Steve Anderson's family heard about my parents' crimes, they were furious and completely cut ties with Vanessa. Steve himself was appalled by my parents' actions, and their relationship quickly deteriorated. He officially broke off the engagement. Vanessa sent me nasty messages day after day. "My life is ruined because of you. My engagement's over, and Steve won't even speak to me. Mom and Dad were arrested and caused a scene, all because you pushed them." I replied quietly, "None of this would have happened if you hadn't used my name without permission. You brought this on yourselves." My parents were released on bail, but are now facing trial. Their lawyer suggested a plea bargain, but I refused. They needed to be held fully accountable under the law. A few months later, the verdict was handed down. My father was sentenced to a year in prison. My mother received 6 months in jail plus 2 years probation. Both were found guilty of forgery and attempted loan fraud. On the day of the verdict, I didn't go to court. Instead, I had a quiet dinner with my grandparents at their house. "Ashley," my grandfather said, taking my hand, "you did the right thing. We're proud of you." My grandmother, with tears in her eyes, nodded. "Selling that land was worth it. You became a remarkable doctor, a strong woman who stands up for justice." Just like 10 years earlier, I decided to sever all ties with my parents and sister. I blocked all their numbers and didn't share my address. I was never going back to that toxic family dynamic. Instead, I strengthened my bond with my grandparents. I spent weekends with them and supported not just their medical expenses, but all their living costs as well. They are my real family now. A few years later, I was appointed chief of cardiology at the hospital. My annual income surpassed $500,000, and I was invited to speak at national medical conferences. My penthouse was filled with letters of gratitude from patients and medical awards. Occasionally, I'd hear rumors in town about my parents and Vanessa. My father hadn't been able to find work since being released, and my mother continued working part-time. Vanessa, after her broken engagement, reportedly withdrew from the world entirely. But I no longer felt anger or hatred toward them. I simply considered them part of a past I wanted nothing more to do with, and kept them tucked away in the back of my mind. My life has been built on the love and support of my grandparents and my own hard work. I am now completely free from toxic family ties, living surrounded by relationships that truly matter. These days, I live with a sense of mission in saving patients, gratitude toward my grandparents, and belief in my own potential. And really, I don't need anything more than that.